Yeah, this is my first time at MicroConf, actually my first time in Vegas. It's an interesting place. No, I'm liking it so far, it's good. But no, I'm really excited to share a little bit about our company, how we've been running things, and yeah, just hopefully some of it ends up being useful. So as Rob mentioned, I'm the CEO of a software tool called Know Your Company. And what we do is we help business owners overcome growing pains. And we specifically work with business owners who have about 25 to 75 employees. And typically, for a lot of you in this room, you might fit that category. One thing that you may notice, in running your company as you grow from 5 to 10, 30, 40, 50 people, is that the feeling of 5 people in a room, it's very different when you all of a sudden have 25. And knowing how people feel about the business, knowing how people feel about what's going on, where things are heading, you just aren't as in touch anymore, and so that's what our software helps with. And we work with really over 10,000 employees in about 15 different countries. We work with companies like Airbnb, Kickstarter, Techstars, Medium. So a lot of software companies, but also companies in the retail space, ad agencies, let's see, even actually churches and nonprofits as well. And a funny thing that people will often say to me when they learn about our business is they'll say, Claire, can I ask you a weird question? And I say, sure. And they'll say, how do you make any money? They hear our pricing model, and as Rob mentioned it as well, and it's a little perplexing to them. So what we do is we charge $100 per employee once. So if you have 20 employees, it's $2,000, you pay that just once, and that's it. So no recurring fees, no annual fees, nothing. And for a lot of people, they're like, well, it sounds like you might be leaving money on the table. Like, why did you do that? And does it work? So we get these questions of, okay, why did we price things this way? Does it actually work? Not just about our pricing, but actually about a lot of different aspects of our business, whether it's how we sell our software, whether it's how we actually run our company. So that's really what I'm going to talk about today and really pull back the curtain on is exactly, why is it that we do certain things in running Know Your Company? What are things that we've learned from that? What's worked? What's not worked? And then most importantly, what are things that you can actually take away from those experiences and hopefully apply to your own business? So first, a little bit, though, about who I am and how I became the CEO of Know Your Company, a little background, too, about our company's history. So, about 3 years ago, I wasn't the CEO of Know Your Company. I was an employee. And I was an employee at an early stage e-commerce startup in Chicago. And I was part of a 6-person team. And I was incredibly unhappy. So unhappy at that job. And the reason I was unhappy, even though the work was challenging, even though I was given a lot of responsibility, my coworkers were great, the reason I was unhappy is because I felt as though I couldn't give feedback to my boss. I felt that if I had an idea, a suggestion, something that I felt like I could share to make the company better, I didn't feel comfortable sharing it. And it drove me insane. I consider myself a pretty upfront, honest person. So, for a bit, I just kind of sat with it and was like, okay, I'm just a, disgruntled employee. And then the more I thought about it, the more I researched it, I realized that this is a problem that doesn't affect just this 6-person startup. If anything, it affects every single company. And it affects, companies not just with 6 people, but 16, 60 people, right? And who's doing anything about this? Why isn't there a solution to it? So what I ended up deciding to do is to solve it in some way and quit my job completely cold, had no idea what exactly, I wanted or how I was going to do this, but committed to really making this the problem I wanted to solve and really make it my life's work. So I ended up, first taking some time just to become an expert on the problem as much as I could. So I devoured every single news article, every single journal, any publication I could get my hands on to become an expert. And as I did this, I started to get some ideas for, okay, how maybe I could help solve this problem. Okay, some theories for what might actually work. And was like, okay, well, these are just ideas. I need to apply them. So ended up doing a case study on a company where I came in as a consultant. I interviewed every single employee in the company and then presented some recommendations to the company about how they could improve their environment. And the craziest thing happened. It helped. It worked. So I thought, oh, okay. Well, I didn't envision myself becoming a consultant, but maybe this is something that I'll do. So I ended up starting a consulting business. And because I knew in the back of my head, I don't want to be a consultant for forever, I decided, okay, what, I bet I could build a software product around this. I bet there's a way to automate some of these ideas around the philosophy I have to solve this problem. So I went to learn how to code. The very first company that I started was actually a company called the Starter League, and it was the first beginner-focused software school in Chicago, and one of the first in the country. And we started about 5 years ago, and so I went back to that school and actually had never taken any of the classes, which is funny. But finally went back, took some of the classes, and started to work on teaching myself how to code, taking these classes, building a prototype on the side. And around this time, and looking to grow my consulting practice, and around this time I got introduced to the CEO of 37 Signals at the time and now Basecamp, so Jason Fried. And Jason, ironically enough, had grown his company to about 40 people, and it was the biggest their company had ever been in their 15-year history. And he said, Claire, this is, it's crazy that you're working on this problem because I'm suffering from this exact same problem. So two things. One, can we hire you as a consultant? We'll be your first client. And can you come in and work with us on this problem? And then two, you're not going to believe this, but we're building a software product around this. And that was Know Your Company. So they built the software product really for themselves. And it was in early stages. And I was working on my own product at the time. But came in, did the consulting work for them. It ended up being incredibly helpful. They learned a ton of insights. And as I'm working on my product, I have a couple companies that are interested in it, that are looking to buy it. And Know Your Company for 37 Signals, they launched it as a product, and it's really taking off. So they signed up almost 100 companies in less than 6 months. So just incredible traction, and a huge reason just because the product worked. So here I am, heads down, doing my own thing, trying to grow my consulting practice. I'd taken up, hostessing at a restaurant on weekend nights. This is for me. I'm like, this is. I just want to solve this problem, whatever it takes. And Jason ends up calling me up, and this is about, I would say, 2.5 years ago, and says, Claire, I have this crazy idea. Know Your Company has gotten to be so successful. We really just can't, manage it. And we want to be focused on Basecamp. We want to go all in on Basecamp. So what if, we've never done this before, what if we spun out the company to its own separate company, separate LLC, and then asked you to run it as a CEO, and you would co-own it with us, but you would grow your own team, build it out from scratch. What do you think of that idea? And I was like, sounds okay. Like maybe I'll take, can I think about it right? No. So yeah, that happened in, December of 2013. So I became the CEO of Know Your Company in January of 2014. But I provide that history and I provide that context just, I guess, because I feel like here I'm definitely in a room full of peers. And I know the journey is, as Des mentioned, it's not always linear. You think something's going to happen, but then it doesn't. But so here we are, 2 years now into running Know Your Company, growing Know Your Company. And for the first 8 months, I actually ran it completely alone. So I was a one-person company doing customer support, designing the UI for features. I'd hired a part-time programmer, but really, it was just me. I did all, every single sales call, every single bit of marketing. I coded our blog in Rails from scratch. Did everything. And then about 8 months in, hired our first full-time programmer, who's still with us today. So we're now a two-person company and have doubled in size. But since that time, and in that time, in those 2 years, me and the other employee, his name's Matt, we've been really, really deliberate about the choices that we've made in building the company and really deliberate about how we do certain things. And so that's exactly what I'm going to share and what we've learned from that. So first, one of the things that we do, and it's possibly just the most recognizable, is just that we don't show our product on our website at all. So if you go to knowyourcompany.com right now, you'll see a lot of copy, some stuff about values and customer testimonials. And then the only way you can buy the product is if you fill out this form and you sign up for a 30-minute in-person demo with me. That's the only way. So why is it that we do that? It seems a little bit odd, especially when the beauty of software in a lot of ways is that you can take something that typically would have to be done manually and in person and scale it. Why would you go back to doing something so manually? So the reason for this, and the reason why we don't show the product at all, there's no video, no screenshots, nothing, is really because we know exactly the best way that Know Your Company can be used. And we really, really want people to get those good outcomes. We are incredibly focused on making sure people have the best experience possible when they use the product. And so it's really important to us that when people come to our site, they're not just signing up and taking a tour of the product and saying that they want to try it out just because, but because they're committed. That they're willing to take 30 minutes out of their day and jump on a call. They're committed. They want to act on this feedback. And that's important to us because we know that in order for the software to work, you have to be committed. It's a piece of software where if you want to get honest feedback from your employees, this can't be just a thing where you're trying to check the box on. We know that your entire company has to be using the software. It can't just be a slice of it. And that the CEO, who's really the person who's leading the initiative, is bought in, right? So filtering for that high commitment, turning people away, focusing on making sure that people have really good outcomes, it's huge for us. And so because of that, everything on our site is our entire demo is really about that as well. So what we do is, sure, a demo, it's not the most efficient thing in the world. I mean, I'll tell you, it's exhausting, right? And I'm sure for a lot of you who do in-person demos as well, I mean, it's a lot of time and energy, right? So it's not the most efficient thing in the world, but it creates trust. So all of a sudden, a CEO who is on a call with me is able to establish the trust of, okay, exactly what situations has this worked well in? I get to learn, okay, here, exactly, tell me the problems that you've been facing, and I'll say exactly and pinpoint exactly how our software can help. The other reason we do this is because when I'm in those demos, I can provide exactly what those best practices are. And again, focusing on making sure that people get really good outcomes. So I can say, oh, you have people, the majority of your company is remote, but you have an in-person office. Well, here's how you can use our social question to make sure that you're integrating those people. Oh, you're hiring, 8 new people, on average every single month. Let me tell you how you can use our icebreaker to be able to make sure people feel as though they're being welcomed and you're giving them a good first impression. So I can give these best practices around how to actually use the software because I'm on a call with them, not because I'm just showing them the product on the site. And the last reason for why we do this is that in a lot of ways it's the perfect market research. I can tell you, to incredible detail the exact situation in which someone heard about our product, the exact objections that people have, the first questions or confusions that they have when I show them a screen, when I'm taking them through the demo. Like, it's incredible rich information that we've translated to our marketing site, to improving the product, to figuring out, how do we, better our messaging. So it's been really the perfect market research for us, and continual market research, right? Continual customer development. So the results from this in terms of what we learned is that because of this, we actually have incredibly high retention of our customers. Because of the people who are coming in are highly committed, 98% of our customers stick with us. So in terms of churn, it's incredibly, incredibly low. We have really, really great customers. They get a lot out of the product. They talk about us, right? which then leads to a high number of referrals. Again, if you're focused on getting good outcomes, right, instead of just trying to capture everyone you can, if you're focused on making sure that if you know exactly the situation that your software is going to be successful in, and you make sure that those outcomes happen for people, people will talk about you. And so 13% of our sales actually come from referrals, which, if I guess you're in the restaurant business, is probably not the highest number, but in terms of the SaaS business, it definitely is something that we're really proud of. Now, the obvious downside to not showing the product on the site and having to do all these in-person demos is that we are having a lot of people who aren't signing up. There are going to be not as many people who are reaching out to begin with. So on average, we get about 26 demo requests a month. I end up demoing about 65% of them because some people might not be a good fit. They might be too big, too small. They just might not end up being interested. So I end up doing about 17 demos per month. I mean, when you think about how many, or how big that number is, how big it could be, that top of the funnel, it's not as big because we're doing these demos, and we acknowledge that. Now, the takeaway, though, for I think for other businesses, though, and what we feel really, really strongly about is that focusing, though, on the fit and the outcome of what you're able to do, it can, I mean, you'd be surprised the results that it leads to, and so that's something that we've always come back to. It's a big core in how we run the company. Another thing that we do is that we turn away potential customers. So I kind of alluded to this. So we know that the software works best if you have really 25 to 75 employees. The most lower bound is 10, so it doesn't work that great if you have less than 10 employees, and it doesn't really work if you have more than 100, and we know this. So if you're not really between 10 and 100 people, we won't sell the software to you, even if you're willing to give us the money to do it. And trust me, we get a lot of requests, especially from bigger companies, 300, 400 person companies who say, Claire, we'll give you 40 grand, we'll buy it. I don't even need to look at, I know I want it. And it's like, we can't give it to you because it's just not going to work. And so just because someone is willing to give you the money, someone is willing to buy it, doesn't mean that you should actually let them. The product simply doesn't work for everyone, so we don't sell it to everyone. We know that we would be doing those customers a huge disservice if we let them use the product. The product would let them down. It just wouldn't work. And then maybe they'd talk poorly about the product. Maybe they'd come back and ask for a refund. It's not worth it to us. For us, what's important is to focus on the people that we know it's exactly going to work for. Now, another segment of people who we focus on because we know that it's important for their buy-in in order for the software to work is that we only work directly with the CEO or someone's a manager in a company. And the reason for that is you need to make sure that you have their buy-in in order for the software to work. And so the nice thing about that is because these people are so committed, because we know that these are going to be the people who are going to be the decision makers in the company, we naturally get to work with the early adopters. We naturally get to work with people who are willing and excited to build a product and don't have to do as much kind of arm twisting to convince them. And so what it's actually resulted in is when I do these in-person demos, we have a pretty high close rate. So I close about 30% of all the demos that we end up doing, so really high conversion rate. So we average about 4 to 5 sales. So again, the downside is that the top of the funnel isn't as big because we're doing a lot of this stuff in person, but the trade-off is that we're able to work with people where they'll buy incredibly quickly, and it's the right person who's buying. And so again, it comes back to having that really good outcome. So in terms of that takeaway, though, for us, we always try to remember that we have a very specific target in terms of who our product helps. We know exactly who the software is going to be most successful for, so we stay committed to that. We stay committed to that really narrow audience. And it's hard, again, when you have people who are willing to give you money, who are bigger or smaller, or might not, you're like, maybe it would work in that situation, maybe. And for us, we have to have the discipline to stay really specific and to pick that narrow niche. Another thing that we do as a company is we never say that we sell employee survey software, or we never say we sell employee engagement software. It's, just not how we describe ourselves. So if you look on our site, if you ever hear me, talking about what we do as a company, we just don't do that. And the reason for that is because it's not what we sell. We feel like we do not sell employee survey software. That's not the job to be done that we're selling. That's just not what the value is that we're providing for people. So I'll give you, an example. And again, many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the jobs to be done framework. So, you have a product, say it's a hammer, or maybe it's a lawnmower, or it's a milkshake. You go to the store to buy, a hammer, right? Are you really looking to buy a hammer, or are you looking to hang a picture? Are you really looking to buy a lawnmower, or are you looking to have your lawn be manicured and green? And are you looking to get a milkshake, or are you just really, really hungry late at night, and it's the perfect thing that's going to make you, not hungry anymore and feel really good, right? So oftentimes when we think about what we're selling, we tell people we sell a hammer. In our store, you come buy our lawnmower, or hey, we make the best milkshakes. When really that's not what you're selling, right? It's not what you're selling. You're selling a job to be done. And for us, we don't sell employee survey software. What we sell is we sell helping you avoid losing a key employee. We sell helping you overcome company growing pains. We sell that we make it easy for a distributed company to feel connected across the world, right? And it's something, again, we're very deliberate about this in our copy. We have a whole section on our homepage where we talk about, is this you? Have you felt this situation, right? Growing. And the amazing thing is, when I do these demos, the reaction that I'll get once, we end up talking to people is they'll say, wow, Claire, I'm on this demo because the copy on your site resonated exactly with what we're going through. It's, no one's actually ever talked, like when I read it, it's exactly what I felt. And so for us, the thing that we always keep in mind is sell to those situations, right? And I think, when you reflect on your own copy on your marketing site, or you think about how you pitch, your own product, selling to situations. Another thing that we do, and this is what I had alluded earlier to in the talk, is that we charge for our software only once. So again, it's $100 per person, and you pay it just once. So again, if you have 30 employees, $3,000. We pair this also with a 90-day money-back guarantee. So if you've been using the product for 3 months, and for some reason it's not working, we'll give you every penny of that. Okay, so why do we do this? A lot of people are confused. It doesn't make sense, right? And the reason why I've been a real believer in this pricing model for our business, at least for now, is because it really aligns with the value that we're trying to create for our customers. So what I personally believe is that when you're getting feedback from your employees, you should not get feedback from them for just 3 months, or 6 months, or even 8 months. My belief is that if you really want to get to know your company, you need to get feedback from your employees for life, for as long as they're with you at the company. And when you offer a subscription model, right, where someone can pay once a month, it's super easy for someone, in month 2 to be like, I didn't really like that answer. I'm just going to turn this off. Or, we're just really busy and we're not into the feedback thing anymore, so I'm going to turn this off, right? However, if up front you had to pay $100 per person, you committed and put an investment in this single person for as long as they're with you at the company, when you run into those, sort of difficult situations of, that answer was kind of tough. Well, I'm going to still keep using Know Your Company. I'm going to make sure that this is something that's going to work for us, right? So for us, it aligns exactly with the outcome that we're trying to create. We're trying to have people feel more encouraged about thinking about feedback. Again, not just in terms of this is just a little experiment or a thing I'll do for a little bit, and if I like it, I like it, and if I don't, I don't. No. That's not how you get really good feedback from your employees. That's not how you create an open, honest culture. What you have to do is you have to continually ask for feedback, right? So it encourages this high commitment. And again, we know that that's what's necessary for our product to work. So the pricing is directly in line with, again, that outcome that we're trying to create. It's also simple, right? $100 per person. Simple, easy to remember, and it's different. People ask about it, on occasion. Now, the results from this, it's interesting. Because people say, well, Claire, you don't have any recurring revenue then. Well, in fact, 70% of our revenue from last year was recurring. And what that means is every time one of our companies added someone new, hired someone, it was $100. Right? So what we did is we helped our companies grow, right? So again, thinking about how the pricing can align with the outcome or the value we're trying to create. We help our companies grow. And so every single time that they're doing well, they're learning a lot from your company, they'll add one person and it's $100. So again, 70% of our revenue ended up being recurring. So in terms of that takeaway, okay, is one-time pricing that might work for your business? Maybe, maybe not. But thinking about pricing in terms of how it can be aligned with your outcome and how to just keep it simple, that I think is something that could be useful for you guys here today. And then the last thing I want to share of, one thing that we do is just the fact that, yeah, we are two people on purpose. And I'm sure some of you in here have been at that stage or currently are in that stage. And it's something that we have had the option to grow. We're a bootstrap company, and so growing, in terms of adding people, it's not as a comfortable experience, but we could do it, definitely. We could do it. But we don't. And it's a very, explicit, deliberate choice that we make. And the reason for this is because, for us, it forces focus. And, pretty intuitive, right? When you only have two people, you can only work on so many things, right? But the most fascinating thing, especially in working with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies who are struggling with growing pains and struggling with the growth of their company, is that focus is the number one thing that they feel like they lack. And it's because they've hired too many people, taking on too much stuff at the same time, right? So the beauty about having just two people is that it forces us to focus, not because it's a nice thing or because we have the discipline to. It's just because we actually just have to. We have to, right? The other thing is that it forces quality. It means that, okay, if we are going to only choose to work on this one thing right now, it better be really good. It better be really, really good. So all of a sudden, the bar for what we feel can be helpful for our customers, what is actually going to be something of quality, that goes up. And it's really pushed us as a company to make sure that every single thing that we're putting out the door, whether it's a blog post, whether it's a new feature, whatever it is of high quality. And so one thing that we do actually, more tactically in doing this is that we'll take 1 month and we'll just pick one thing for that month. So maybe it's working on a new email drip campaign. That's the one thing we work on that month. Maybe it's a new onboarding feature. That's the one thing that we work on. We just take 1 month, one focus, keep things really, really simple. And the funny thing that's resulted from this is that we actually have stopped working on a lot of things that just don't matter in hindsight, right? So a lot of kind of neat ideas that I'll get, we just won't end up working on. And it's actually a great thing because I probably, had I gone down that path, should not have been spending my time towards it. So the things that you try to let go of, right? The features that might bloat your product, the things that you try to let go of, all of a sudden those things do go away when you do have just two people. So take advantage of that smallness and see it really as something that you can use to hone in on picking that 1, 2 things, 3 things, and doing those things really, really, really well. So these takeaways, these are the things that we've learned for the past 2 years in running Know Your Company. And it's takeaways that I personally reflect on a lot and try to stay true to, especially as we evolve the business, especially as we think about how we want to change things. And actually right now, we're in the middle of going through a really big change to the business. I'm excited to share that with you and how we're in the middle of applying some of those takeaways. And actually, I would ask if anyone's live tweeting not to tweet about it yet, because we're hoping to ship this in 2 weeks and you can talk about it then. But what we're looking to do is move to self-sign-up. So what would happen is you come to the page, and now you can actually see the product. Now you can sign up, use it for a few weeks, and buy it if you want. Okay, so so why are we doing that when I just told you that we don't show the product? Why are we making this switch? So ultimately, what we acknowledge is that there are constraints in that manual process that I told you, right? The number of people who are coming through the top of the funnel are inherently going to be less because some people just don't have the time to sit down for a 30-minute demo. We get that, right? But ultimately, we want to help more people. We want to help more business owners who are 25 to 75 people who are facing these challenges. And so for us, if there's a way where people could come to the site and buy it themselves without having it to be me, because mind you, I do every single demo, right? And sure, I could hire a sales team, but still in a sense, the business doesn't scale. So in wanting to help more people, we thought about, okay, well, in moving to self-sign-up, how can we do that? And in fact, a lot of the things, or these takeaways, that I shared with you, this is exactly what we're thinking about as we move to self-sign-up. So in terms of focusing on fit and outcomes, okay, sure. People need to be able to see the product before they buy it, so we'll put it on the site, we'll put a video, we'll put screenshots. But how do we make sure that these people add all of their employees, right? I mentioned that was a big part of making the product successful. How do we make sure they're the CEO, right? How do we make sure that they're going to have a high commitment? And for us, what that means is, again, optimizing for trust versus efficiency. So one thing that we're actually going to do in the onboarding process is when you go to add your people or pick your start date for Know Your Company, instead of there just being some copy and some fields you plug in and then you hit next, what we're going to try is actually having a video of me talking for about a minute and saying, hey, so I'm going to ask you to do this thing. It's kind of big, but we're going to ask that you add all of your employees and not just a slice of them, and it needs to be at least 10, and here's why. We spent 2 years observing exactly how the product's been used in the best ways, in the best cases that it's been used. And so creating trust. Will it take a little bit longer for them to get through that onboarding process because we're going to have a video instead of just copy where someone can just click? Absolutely. But again, for us, what's most important is that these people who are coming to sign up for the product trust us. And it's really, really hard to trust a system, so we cheat a little bit, and what we're getting them to do is trust in a person and having the video, trusting in me. So it's something that we're going to try. The other thing that we're keeping in mind as we move to self-sign-up is we're still going to stay focused on this narrow niche. We're going to have a stringent requirement around you can't sign up for the product unless you have at least 10 people. That if you do want to sign up, you have to be a CEO, a founder, or a manager in the company. So that's something that we're still going to maintain even though we're moving to self-sign-up. We're still going to be really focused on selling to specific situations. So, case studies will be incredibly huge for us as we move to, people being able to see the product. It's not just, screenshots of, Know Your Company's UI, but it's screenshots of a Know Your Company question or email that Airbnb used. And here were the exact responses and what the employees exactly said, and then here's the exact action that, the head of design ended up taking from it, right? So being really specific about here's the exact situation that you can use the software. We're actually going to still keep the same pricing model when we move to self-sign-up too. We're going to try it out. I'll let you know how it goes. So it'll be still $100 per employee. You'll pay just once. So if you want to buy it, we'll invoice you. You'll have 7 days to pay out the invoice, check, PayPal, credit card, etc. And again, it's because of our belief in that outcome of we want people to continually be getting that feedback. And then we're still going to just be 2 people, at least for a little bit. And again, I'm not opposed to, of course, eventually, if the needs of the business do become bigger, hiring people. But right now, it's amazing how much we get done. It's amazing how much to our advantage being small has been. And I think it's something that we can continue. So if you're curious about when we're going to launch, if you're curious to take a peek, maybe apply some of the things that we do to your own business, just drop me a note at claire@knowyourcompany.com. Put something like self-sign-up, KYC, MicroConf, something like that in the subject line, and I'll make sure to send you a personal note when we do launch. Because I would love for all of you to hopefully find what we do and what we do well or not so well to be helpful. Because that's really why I'm here and why I wanted to come to MicroConf. Why I was really excited to give this talk in particular is, I want to be helpful. I want to take the learnings that we've gained from the past 2 years, share them. So if you want to come find me sometime today, talk about some of the things we've done with our business and how we've been selling the software, definitely would love to talk about that. If you're a founder and you're more curious about, okay, I just grew to 12 employees and I'm trying to figure out how to make sure to get honest feedback. Let's talk about that. Would love to share what we've learned from the hundreds of companies we've worked with. And then lastly, if you're looking to use technology as a way to get to know your company better and want to actually check out the product, I'd love to give you a demo, whether it's here, we can sign up for one, do one later, but I would love to offer 3 free employee accounts if you do end up buying. Just make sure to mention MicroConf to me. So yeah, thank you so much for your guys' time today. Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm reading a recent book called Smarter, Better, Faster on productivity research by the same guy that did the Habit.
David Allen?
No? Duhigg.
Okay, sorry,
and
I don't know.
he has a chapter on productive teams. Mm-hmm. And he deals in depth with exactly the problem you mentioned at the beginning, being on a small team
Yes.
and feeling you can't speak out.
Yes.
And then Amy Edmondson did some research in the 90s, and Google Project Aristotle or something. Are you just productizing this research in social science and productive teams? Is that the basis of the software?
It's a great question. So I don't know. I know a bit of Amy's research. I don't know if I'm familiar with the book that you referenced in particular. But our philosophy is it's based on something really, really simple, which is that the core of dysfunction in a growing team is simply that there isn't enough information to the people who need it. And the way to get information, the way to get answers, is to ask questions. You can't get answers unless you ask questions. So the key really to the software is actually very, very simple. It's all about asking really, really good questions in the right way and at the right time. And so that's actually why, in a lot of ways, for our product, now more than ever, the product's been working incredibly, is we have 2 years worth of data of exactly what are the best questions to ask, in what ways, in what situations. So that's pretty to its core the most essential part of our philosophy and what the product was really built around.
Hi, Claire. I had a quick question for you about, so you've had these companies that you've got on here, and you've got this cap of 75 employees before
Yes.
you'd say, no, we can't do that anymore. So let's say you're at the top end of the cap, you've signed these guys up, they start growing, now they're at 100 employees. I mean, what do you do? Oh, sorry, you're too big now, we can't know your company anymore. I mean, what's the scaling limit there, I guess?
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Actually, yes. So it's really interesting. We have quite a few companies who graduate Know Your Company. And they'll come to us, or we'll go to them and we'll say, hey, how's it feeling right now? Do you feel like people are hesitant to respond because there are so many people who are a part of the questions, and they'll say yes or no. So we'll work with them to say, okay, we don't think it's a good fit for you anymore, or they'll come to us and let us know. So that's for some companies. For other companies, and we have quite a few companies in this situation, they will start using the product with us when they're 50, 60, 70 people, and they'll actually continue to grow and continue to use the product. So our biggest customer right now is actually 380 people, and they actually still use the software. So they're a little bit more of an outlier. I don't think that's the typical case, but the reason for them of why at 380 people the software will still work is because they started when they were 70, right? So they have the routines in place, everyone's already bought in, and then as they've grown, that's been maintained. I think it's more of, I don't think that's the norm, and so it's something, again, we've tried it on occasion. There'll be an 110-person company, and I'll say, hey, here's the thing, this is what we've seen, I don't know if it's going to work, so you have to be willing to know that, and we're very, very honest with people. So it's, one of the two situations. We'll either graduate a company, or we'll know that, hey, if someone's at 70 and then they grow really quickly, that it actually may work out well for them.
So your pricing model is really unique. I'm kind of curious, what did the decision-making process did you go through to get to that point?
Yeah, great question. So I didn't pick the pricing model, which is something that's pretty unique about the business. It was something that Jason, when they built the product that they came up with, it was him, and they have a data analytics person, Noah, and he was the one who actually came up originally with the pricing. And for them, I'm not going to lie, their intentions, I think, were definitely really, really different around why they did it. When they launched Know Your Company, the product was an experiment for them. They had no idea what was going to happen. So to see what the return would be on an experiment, they wanted to try one-time pricing because that would be an easy way up front to tell whether or not this was going to work. So that was the primary motivation. For me, the reason why I kept it, because I could have easily changed it to subscription, is that I noticed that the behavior of these customers who were coming in and saying, okay, I'm giving you a check for for $4,000. Like, all right, here we go. This is a program. All of a sudden, again, that commitment, I started to see that that was a huge reason for why the software was successful. And then again, that coupled just with my personal belief about how you should be getting feedback from your employees, it's something that I really wanted to maintain. But in terms of how the actual model itself originally was created, it was really for that reasons of, hey, this is an experiment, we want to try it out, and so it seems like something that would be interesting.
Something else real quick, just for the audience, for you to expand on. You and I talked briefly last night about the fact that, like, as these companies grow, you charge them for the additional employees, because I think that factors in it. Could you just comment on that for a minute?
Yes, absolutely. And that's, when you saw the slide of 70% of our revenue is recurring, I mean, that's been huge for us. And that was the other, learning that they wanted to have is, how fast do these companies grow? So on average, we have about 50 employees who are added to Know Your Company every single week, right? So every company adds around 4 people every single week. That's how fast these companies are growing, right? So it's interesting because, again, when you think about, the problem that we're solving, we're solving or we're helping companies who grow that quickly manage that growth. So if we do that well, then they'll continue to grow. So the thought behind that is, well, let's make a bet that if we do a good job, they're going to continue to add their employees. And one indicator for us is if the product's not doing so hot for a company is we'll notice that, oh, they're not adding as many employees. And we'll reach out and we'll find out, oh, they're just not hiring right now, right? But for us, that's also a great indicator of, okay, well, how well is this actually working? But Mike, great point of we do charge $100 for every new person who's added.
How do you qualify your leads? You said you only give about 17 demos a month. How are you qualifying them to figure out if they're a good fit for the demo?
Yes, great question. That's actually kind of evolved over the past year, so I'm glad you asked that. So originally, we actually didn't even have a form on the site. So if you go way, way, way back from when Know Your Company was originally launched, the marketing page, if you were to go to knowyourcompany.com, was actually just a letter. So it was Dear Business Owner with Growing Pains. And it was signed originally first by Jason, and then I rewrote it and then wrote it from me. And then you would just email me at claire@knowyourcompany.com and tell me about your growing pains, right? So every person who reached out would say, write literally sometimes, a few paragraphs, sometimes a few sentences saying, here are the growing pains that I'm going through. So I would really look for, okay, are they actually suffering from the pains that I know the software solves for? 2, are they the right size? Because for us in particular, company size has a lot to do with whether the software will work well. And then 3, what position are you at the company? Or tell me about the work that you do, right? Are you the CEO? Or are you an employee who might want to refer this to the CEO, right? So what do I do in that situation? In that situation, what I say is, hey, the product only does really, it's built originally for the CEO. So 2 things, I'd love for your CEO to also be on the demo, or I'm happy to provide some information for how you could get your CEO to actually do the demo, but we do only work directly with the CEO or the business owner. Is that helpful? Does that answer your question? Oh, no, it's me, actually. Sorry, I should have clarified that. So I do this, yeah. It's super, super manual. So it's, if you, fill out the form, like right now, it'll go to my email address, right? And we ask that you say, how big you are. And if you don't, I'll ask, hey, could you tell me about how big you are? If it's, if I feel like someone didn't give enough information about the growing pains that they're experiencing, I'll ask, hey, could you, tell me a little bit more about that, right? So it's very manual. And again, I think the beauty of that is we've learned so much from those interactions. We've learned exactly, if it is an employee who's reaching out, why they want to use the product, or what are the obstacles for them to recommend the product to their CEO. It's incredible information because we've been doing it manually. Awesome. Yep.
I'm working on a product that's fairly similar in the recruiting space,
Cool.
Based on cultural fit. And I'm wondering, the research that you did around the psychology and the basics of how you're getting the employees to understand their fit and their engagement. How much has that applied as you've learned, and has that gone away in terms of what you've learned from your customers, or are you still basing it on that?
Great question. It's definitely a mixture of both. So it's interesting. It's a huge reason actually why I do the talks, right? So the software itself focuses, again, it's all based around asking questions, right? And being able to get the information that you want. But for me, the outcomes we're trying to create for our customers isn't just getting the information, it's them being a better business owner. It's them being able to run their company better, not having to, be sweating at night trying to understand, okay, why aren't my employees being honest with me? Like, that's what we're trying to do. So so because of that, for us, a big part isn't just having the software, but providing information around it. So those best practices. We email out monthly tips to our CEOs about the best ways that they can use the software. We actually even have a Basecamp project that we put all of our customers on. This is pretty unique, so that they can actually email, or just on the Basecamp project, and it's public, to hundreds and hundreds of CEOs. If they have a problem with anything, if they don't like something, if they want something to be better, they can post it on Basecamp, and I'll get back to them right away. I pretty much have been on the phone with almost every single one of our customers at some point. And then the other thing I was going to mention was, and then it's a huge reason why I give these talks is because, or not this talk in particular, but most of the time what I actually end up speaking about is how do you take the information that you get and actually use it? Or how do you create an environment in your company where people will even be willing to answer the questions in the first place? How do you create that sense of trust? So it's definitely a combination, because the techniques around that are more based on a lot of the early research that we've done, but also just a lot of the learnings too. So I hope that answers. It's a mixture of both. Cool.
Hey, I'm Scott. We actually have a
Hello.
4-person company, but it's my wife and I and 2 employees. And for us, if no offense to anybody who has 20 plus employees, but it hurts us way worse if we lose an employee than those people with their 20 employees. So to me, this is more painful than, I feel like a 75-person company. So I'm just curious what you have to say around small companies. And I get that some of it's about being out of touch because you're too big, but for us, it's about we have two of our 2 employees are both pretty meek in a lot of ways about how comfortable I feel like they are with kind of giving feedback. And some of that might be the culture that we create, but I'm just curious what you have to say about that. So.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Being a very small company myself, I can tell you, if we lost Matt, oh my God, it would just be me. So I totally hear you on that. It's funny, he and I actually use the product ourselves as a 2-person company, but the reason why we don't like to recommend that or sell that is because for us it's different. It's our product, right? But for other people, we feel like it would be overkill. And when you do have, typically, and I don't know if this is in your case, but typically if you have 4 people, you're usually in the same room, or you're usually talking all the time, and you're pretty close to knowing where people are at, what they're thinking about, how they feel about the vision of the company, what they're working on. That's typically the case. So really what we solve for is when you are bigger, the tendency is you don't know that stuff. When you have 10 people, that's really the tipping point of, oh man, I really don't even know what those 2 people are working on, or oh, I've never asked them about their opinion on employee benefits. I wonder if they like it. So that's been more the tipping point. One thing that's interesting though is we made one exception actually very recently, a few months ago, where we had a company that was 6 people, and they begged to use the software. They said, we really are struggling with the growing pains, and it's actually worked really well for them. And the reason for them it's worked well is because they're a remote company. So they don't have that in the same room, can just lean over and ask what someone's up to, or kind of have that social interaction. So it's worked really well for them. What we do say, though, for companies who are small and you're like, I don't know, I feel the pain, I don't know, Claire, I think it could be helpful, is we say, hey, you know what, wait until you grow, because you will grow. Wait until you get those 2 more people, 3 more people, when you get to 6 or 8, and then reach back out. And I'm sure by then, it'll definitely work for you. We just don't want people to use the product and be like, oh, this is just too much. I already know all this stuff. So, cool. Thanks.
Sorry.
All good.
My name's Jason. I've built small companies similar to yours, 1, 2, 3, 4 people. Typically when you have a very small team that's actually producing a lot of work, there's a lot of automation involved. And it seems like in your case, you actually have almost no customer automation involved. So very high touch, a lot of personal effort. Your personal emails are blowing up. It's really obvious you're incredibly driven, you're incredibly focused, and incredibly willing to work hard, but how are you protecting yourself against burnout?
Totally.
As when I was growing my company, the first time I hired someone, I was like, oh my God, I don't have to do that anymore. And it was amazing how much faster the company could move when I was able to just take a little pressure off me. I have kids now, I have no ability to do that again and no interest, but I'm curious how you're protecting yourself against burnout and how you're assuming like, maybe you're not able to do actually as good a job as if you brought someone on who just focused on that one task and wasn't trying to do the product, the marketing, the convincing of the CEO, et cetera.
Totally. Such a good question. It's actually why we're moving to self-sign-up, because of that reason. That's definitely a huge part of it, which is, I mean, when we made these deliberate decisions about the business of making a lot of things manual, again, we did it on purpose, and we knew it was only going to be for a certain amount of time. You know, we were going to take these 2 years, build a really solid foundation of the business, know our customers better than anything else. So that's what we've done, and we've gotten to a point where we feel like, we've learned enough about exactly how the product can be used, where we can now package it up and mass distribute it, automate a lot of those things. So I'm totally with you. It's not a sustainable business by any means. The thing that I was excited, though, about the talk to share is that while the actual specific tactics day-to-day of doing a lot of this stuff manually may not be sustainable in the long run, one, it's really surprising, and I'm sure you know this, one, it's surprising how far you can get for how long doing it manually and how much you learn. And then two, with those learnings, how much of that you can actually package up and put into when you're ready to go automatic, which is what we're right in the middle of. So I'm excited to share maybe next year, with how things go. But I'm so with you. It's definitely not something that I just can't be doing demos for years and years and years and years. So we're at that tipping point now. Cool.
Yeah, Claire, I had a question.
Yes.
Most companies, are a very common path for growing a company is to start in a less expensive market, and then you move up more into kind of the enterprise or the upmarket case. In your case, you guys are actually turning away the upmarket, right?
Yes.
Because you're not going to the 200 and 300 and 400. Has that been a difficult decision? And is there, you talked a little bit about it, but I'm wondering, like, is there a really strong reason why you haven't done that? Or are you just not, you're not valuing growth as much as, say, lifestyle, or whatever, or what? How have you thought about that?
Yeah, that's another really good question, Rob. So for me, my personal passion and who I want to help is I want to help small business owners personally. It's it's a very personal thing. I've never worked for a big company. I've started. This is the third company that I've run, but I've never been a part of a big company. So this is what I know. This is what I feel like I can relate to, and the people I can help the most first. That's not to say though that this problem of not knowing your employees isn't, if anything, the most painful the bigger you are. So I definitely feel that pull. As I know, man, I have friends who work in 300, 400 person companies, and I know there is a version of this product that could work well for them. But for now, because I have such a strong passion for helping small business owners, this is where we want to stay focused on. And I don't know, I really feel eventually though, like we want to help more people, and I'm confident there is a version of Know Your Company as it is that could help them. So yeah, it's a good question though.